Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is a two-part video of how I made this live edge coffee table. It's got some lovely joinery. Follow along. I appreciate a like, a subscribe, any comments that you have. I'll try and get back to you. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. So the first part of this build was prepping the slab, getting it flattened with a router sled. I did this with quite a simple jig, 2 bits of ply at right angles and then the router across another bit of ply, and just slid it back and forth, gradually taking the slab down to its final thickness. So the board started out at 50mm thick. Once flattened, took it down to 35, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of cupping to take out of it. I've cut some bow tie inlays to stabilise the slab, all the cracks and splits it had in it, just because I think they look really nice, add quite a bit of character, and then I started marking them out. So the easiest way I found to do this was glue the bow ties to the slab with some blue tape, then use a marking knife to get an outline. Once I had an outline, I could trace it with a chisel a bit better, router out the middle, carve it, and then you had a perfectly tight fit of the bow tie inlay. So here's another close-up view. Using that marking knife and chisel first to get the outline really helps to get that final perfect fit. So the slab had 4 bow ties in total. Once they were all cut out and fitted, I needed to fill all the remaining cracks up with epoxy just to further stabilise the slab and to stop anything going down them once the table was in use. So I mixed up some forest green epoxy, which I thought would go really nicely with the oak once all the treatment was applied. Once the epoxy had cured, I was able to sand it flat and then start the process of making the legs for the table. So I started cutting the legs out. They needed to be cut at angles to make the final shape. So all the bridle joints had to be done at a certain angle. I think the angle I chose in the end was about 15 degrees. So I now had 2 sets of coffee table legs that linked together with bridle joints at the bottom. So now I could start working on the top section of the legs, which would be dovetail lap joints that connected the legs to the tabletop slab. I marked out and then rough cut most of this on the table saw before finishing off with a chisel. Really sped up the process. So once I cut all the dovetails out the legs, I glued them up, which is a little bit complex, and then they were ready to start working on joining to the slab. So first of all, I had to square off the slab ends. I did this by rough cutting it and then used a spiral flush trim bit on the router to get a nice smooth square face. Once I had both ends square, it was time to start fitting the dovetailed lap joints to this slab. I started doing this by marking out the dovetail joints against the ends of the slab with a marking knife. This gave me some nice accurate lines to reference off and then meant the chisel located perfectly into those lines. I then routed out most of the waste before tidying up and cleaning up the edges with a chisel to get that perfect fit. I did this both sides and then I double checked the fit of it before I continued routering out most of the waste to full depth. So the beauty of getting that fit right at a shallow depth meant that I could use a profiling router bit just to finish off really quickly, getting it to just the right depth both sides. So the beauty of using some lap dovetail joints was the natural angles of the dovetail joints work to prevent any kind of wobbling or movement, because it can't move out of the joint any other way other than 90 degrees to the end face. After cutting out the dovetail joints, I did a quick dry fit before moving on to strengthening up the bridle joints with some dovetail keys, which I thought would look quite nice and just tied in with all the other joinery. Although the bridle joints were already glued up at this stage, I think this is a technique I'll use in future builds before glue up, because it will lock the joint together and could also actually be used if you wanted to do joinery without any glue because of the angles of the dovetail. Because this is a table that's going to have lots of back and forth movement on a carpet, I needed to round off the sharp edges of the angled bridle joints. So I did this by making a quick little router jig that followed the profile of the leg. So that brings us to the end of part 1. Join me next time where I'll go through adding a few extra details to this and finishing the slab table off. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.